So the first thing you're going to do is get a pencil and an eraser, which is basically what we're going to be doing for all my videos. And for the first shape, it's going to be kind of a gradual arc. And once you get about 3/4, you're going to go downhill into a slightly sharper, harsher arc. And do the same thing on the bottom, except for the arch is going to be a little bit higher. And then for the iris, you're just going to do kind of like a 3/4 of a circle because you don't want to put the iris right in the center. And the pupil is going to be about 1/5 of the iris, and it's going to be a full circle, and kind of have it centered where it would be in pretend centered if the circle is fully shown. And right now I am shading in a ring around the pupil, and that's what you're going to do. And try to cover it so it looks full, so it's like the whole color. And what I did for this was I went over and I traced it over again. And you want to keep the same shade throughout. And as you can see, I'm kind of going back in there trying to fill in the lines so it's kind of a whole color. You don't really see any other lines. And I'm just going to repeat this same process on the bottom, on the outside. And if you notice, the first one that I did, you can kind of go over the lines because we're going to be painting over that with a darker color or a darker shade. And for the bottom, I don't really recommend that because we're just going to leave it white and maybe a little bit more of a shading, but you don't want it to be too obvious that you drew outside the lines. And so this is a more clear view of the technique. I'm kind of just going over it. And this isn't really a good professional kind of drawing. It's really rough. So it's kind of realistic for people who don't have this as a career or haven't really drawn, so they don't really have a lot of practice. So as you can see, I'm almost done with the rough shading. And this is going to make the iris seem a little bit more 3D. And I've seen this in various eye videos, and so I'm kind of putting it into perspective for those beginners. And hopefully this helps. It's a little bit more detailed and a little bit more beginner than those videos. And then I'm going to go back and using a darker shade, I'm going to go on the right outer ring a little bit less than half of the other shade, and I'm going to go back in and do a darker shade just to kind of exaggerate that 3D effect. And I'm going to use the same technique with that whole color, maybe even more so, just so that since it's so dark, it's really obvious when you don't color it all in. And as you can kind of see, it isn't really working as well as I'd like it to. But that's okay because you guys probably won't get on your first try either. This is probably my 50th time drawing an eye, just one eye. It's really hard, so I'm just kind of not doing my absolute professional kind of so that you guys can kind of tell. So right now I'm doing a kind of a liney shading, and I'm going to do the same technique, and you don't want to just go in one direction, you want to kind of go all the way around like this, and then I'm going to go back in with a darker shade and really put in back some lines, because if you'll see in other drawings or other pictures, you can really see the line. And now I'm going to go back in and blend it all with my finger and use the oil of my finger to kind of blend in all the colors together so it kind of has that ombre effect. And as you can see, this kind of takes out some of the lines, so I'm going to redo those and re-accentuate those lines in the iris between them. And you want to make sure that's kind of a lighter shade than the rest so that you can kind of tell still the outside, and you can still maintain that 3D effect. Okay, so I'm just kind of filling in those extra lines here. Almost done. almost done. And I'm going to go over with some lines so you can kind of see more lines. And I'm going to take the back of my pencil eraser. You can also use a regular eraser if you want. That's why I showed that in the beginning of the tutorial, even though I'm not using it. And you're going to go around in the middle and kind of have a little bit of light just to also accentuate that 3D effect. And I'm going to go over it with my finger. And you're not going to put a lot of pressure on the eraser when you do it, just so that you can kind of tell it's a little bit lighter. And I'm just going to go around and blend that, and I'm also going to blend the edges that I did so that you can kind of see that ombre effect and it's not as harsh, the lines aren't as harsh. And so you can kind of tell I'm going around the ring of it and I'm kind of blending everything together. And your main focus is to blend it with the middle, the lighter color. And now I'm kind of just reshaping the eye because it wasn't really turning into a full perfect circle, which irises are. So I was doing that, and now I'm going to redraw the pupil inside just so you can kind of tell where it is. And then I'm going to color it in the darkest shade I can possibly do. And I'm going to start out a little bit lighter just so I can fill it all in. And then I'm going to go back in with the darker shade. And so now I'm just on the lighter part. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the eye. This isn't really a professional drawing. It's just something that, I don't know, a middle schooler can do, maybe a little bit younger, because I started drawing these in 5th grade, and all the way up until you're adult, as long as you have kind of that mid-skill level to beginner, this is a really good tutorial. But if you're kind of professional and you're looking for a step up, then you're going to want to kind of close out of this video actually, because it's not really a professional video and the eye is really realistic for this drawing skill, but not really much for professional artists. So this is just kind of a fun drawing, and I'm gonna go back in and kind of put in this shine mark, I guess is what I call it. And I originally started with a square, but then I wanted to do kind of a circle. So I'm kind of blending it back in, and then I'm going to redraw the lighter part in the middle so you can kind of tell that that's really where the shine is. And it doesn't have to be as harsh. If there's a harsh lighting in the room, the eye wouldn't have a harsh shine mark anyway. And now I'm kind of reshaping it again because I had another look at it and it wasn't that good. So you can kind of see the iris is done and it looks pretty good. And this is the part where I do the eyelashes. And this is pretty much the main part of the video, just because I had trouble figuring out how tall the eyelashes had to be. So right now I'm just going to do this bottom shade. And as you can see, they're a little bit short for the eye. And then I go back in, once I'm done, and kind of thicken the eyelashes. And somewhere in this part of it, I look and I see that it's not tall enough. So I'm going to go back in a few minutes. But yeah, see right there, I'm going back in, I reevaluated, and since I'm not used to drawing this big, it's about the size of my hand, and I usually draw about the size of my palm or smaller. It's really hard for me to kind of do perspective. So now I'm going to go back in, and as you can see, the little eyelashes, the shorter eyelashes, provide a kind of a cool effect because it makes the eyelashes seem thicker at the base. And now I'm going to go in and redefine them with some really dark eyelashes so you can really tell. And right now they're not really looking that realistic, are they? They have kind of a block effect. They don't really look separate. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to kind of erase the little light eyelashes so you can kind of see the main eyelashes as a whole. And I'm just going to go in and really, really lightly erase them. Because if you put a little bit of pressure more, then you're going to kind of erase most of the medium pressure that I put on with the eyelashes. So you're going to want to keep that. And now I'm just going to go in and add some darker ones, so if I have to change them later and I erase this, then I won't have to erase those. And now I'm going to do the smaller ones. Now these are going to be fewer, and as you can see, they're kind of the same size at the top, so I'm going to redo that later. And now I'm going to come in and do kind of a less curved towards the right angle. I'm just going to kind of go down so it looks kind of realistic. And that's going to be it for the bottom, because the bottom's not really the big part of it. And obviously I'm doing a female eye, and eyelashes aren't looking too good right now, so I'm going to redefine them and make them longer. And I'm going to keep using that method of adding dark eyelashes so that when I erase, and I'm going to erase again, as you can see, not all of the eyelashes go away. And since humans don't tend to have this much on the top compared to the bottom, I'm really trying to get this as realistic as possible for the skill level that I have, so I'm just going to go in and erase them as much as I can. And one thing that you can do is, for kind of an eyeliner effect, is to shade in the bottom kind of ring around the eye, the outer border, just a little bit more, so you can kind of tell where the base of the eyelashes are. And if you would like, do a little bit darker for an eyeliner effect. So now I'm going to go in and do these little things on the side of your eye. They kind of look like flesh, and they have a lot of different shades in them. So I'm going to kind of blend it in and keep going with that. And some of my favorite YouTubers have really good shading techniques. So if you need a shading technique video, leave a comment and I will tell you. But otherwise, you can also watch other videos, and they have a much more defined and realistic looking side of the eye. But for now, I'm just going to leave it like this, just so I can get the point across, and I can make this as short as possible, because otherwise I could spend 30 minutes trying to define this. And the shape is kind of lumpy. And then you also want to do the other side, so I'm going to go in and do those. And then I'm just doing some final touches by having the shadow of the eyelashes on the iris. And if I move my hand away, you can kind of see right below the eyelashes there are a few little white lines, and I'm doing that all the way around the eye. And the camera doesn't really pick it up, so it's not as effective when you watch this video, but it will be. And I'm just kind of blending it out because it looks way too harsh to be realistic. And I'm also going to take that and put it underneath the eye, and you can see there's a little piece of dirt underneath my paper, so there's going to be a black dot for quite a while in this video. And I'm trying to figure out how to take it off, but it's just having problems, so I eventually get it out. And then I kind of fix that by erasing it and going over back with that lead or pencil on my finger. And that's one of the greatest techniques. If you don't have a lot of pencil on your finger, you can just draw a square on the bottom and rub it with your finger, and then take your finger that was rubbed and put it around the eye. And I'm just kind of erasing it because it looks a little bit too dark. And I don't want to put any more pencil on my finger for this. It's really light so far. So I'm going to keep doing that. And you can see the eyes really coming together, but it doesn't quite look right. And my friend taught me this, where you draw kind of the contour of the nose, and you kind of use that gradient effect where you get darker and then lighter. And right now I'm looking at it and it seems like it's just one shade, but once you blend it in, you can really kind of help that. And you can extend the lighter parts of it to kind of show a little bit more of the face. So now it looks kind of random, and it looks even worse when I'm trying to blend it in because my fingers are making it look a lot darker and they're kind of making it darker. So I'm going to go in back with my eraser just a little bit. You don't want to erase the whole thing, just put a little bit of pressure and then keep going and accentuate that nose line, I guess. Alright, that was the final eye. And thank you so much for your view. It means a lot to me. And like I said before, this is my first video, and I put a lot of effort into it despite its kind of bad quality and it's not very professional. But make sure to like, subscribe, and comment because there are definitely more videos coming.